Good morning. I'm Bob Poulin, President and Chief Revenue Officer of agencyQ, a digital marketing engagement firm here in Washington, D.C. I'm sitting down with Dante Disparte, the founder and CEO of Risk Cooperative, to talk about GDPR, its global implications on the macro, micro, security, and marketing area. Dante, welcome. I'm here with Dante Disparte, the founder and CEO of Risk Cooperative, to talk GDPR and its implications. Welcome.
Thank you, Bob. Happy to be here.
Thanks. One of the things when we've been talking to our clients, who do you think owns this within an organization? Because it really cuts across, as we said, the marketing side. We've talked to and counseled CMOs, the CISO or CIO, obviously from a data and data security side, the CFO from a financial and ROI perspective. How do you see with your clients who owns that and who should own it in an organization?
Sure. Well, clearly, I think you just highlighted by the types of engagements you're seeing with your firm across the C-suite. Yeah. That on the security and the privacy and really critically the business continuity element of this conversation. This is as much a C-suite and even a board level priority as anything. Concretely, what we're really advising organizations to do and to think about is to gauge their readiness and their exposure to the consequences of GDPR. But then if you flip it on its head, GDPR readiness and being able to either assert that a company is compliant and or exceeds the standards required, I think creates an enormous marketing opportunity, candidly, but provided, of course, it is real. Right? I mean, one should not convey a level of cybersecurity or compliance to these new regulations without having taken the steps to really get there. But there is an enormous opportunity here for firms to leapfrog. I would advocate that the reason GDPR exists is that we're very much in the trust age, and that the single most important currency companies can trade on, whether it's from their external communication or their internal operations and governance, is trust. Companies that can withstand sunlight can survive cyber risk, and companies that can convey to their stakeholders, clients, and others that we take these rules very, very seriously at the top, and we convey that as part of our marketing and communication strategy. I think those firms will gain a huge premium because people want trust right now.
Yeah. Referencing off of marketing, trust, data, and premium, you've talked about and we've talked about the enterprise value of data within an organization. As a digital marketing company and with our brands and clients, there's obviously a lot of value in consumer data. On the other side, on the InfoSec side, there's the balance of the cost of, as you said, cybersecurity, protecting the data, privacy, and compliance. How do you advise companies on that balance?
So that dilemma, Bob, is in my opinion one of the very biggest conundrums, if you will, of the whole cybersecurity and privacy debate. That on the one front, cybersecurity represents a business continuity risk. Not long ago, the city of Atlanta was sent back to clipboards and analog because of a pervasive ransomware attack that crippled the city's systems. And so asked the citizens of Atlanta whether they cared more about the privacy of their medical records or their school records, or they cared about getting their city back online and functioning again. So that's the one sort of extreme. The other extreme is, the privacy exposures really do matter, and we just mentioned Equifax a moment ago. But what I think what connects the two, and what is the gap in the whole marketplace, is that right now there is no GAAP compliant, so general accounting principles compliant method of valuing informational assets. And so information and critical data in a company operates very much like financial liquidity in a bank. You only know it matters when there's a line out the door of people claiming their deposits.
So Dante, along those lines, moving forward, it would seem as if a three-pronged strategy is probably in order. One, some sort of auditor assessment for a company of where they stand now. Two, are they compliant? Is there a certification or an assurance that they can have that they are compliant? And if they are, then can they use that as a competitive advantage in relation to their competitors to be able to market against? Is that something that you agree with?
Yeah, I think companies, one, you can't escape it, and I think the whole conversation really just outlines at a high level what's taking place. very concretely, those 3 steps are exactly what I would go through if I were, running a firm exposed to GDPR. So the concept of the audit is just about gauging, the organizational readiness, how much of the data the organization might house is actually exposed, and being able to quantify that effect, and how essential is access to the European market to a company's overall operating strategy. So I think, those types of, audits and reviews need to take place. And then finally, the decision around self-certifying and sort of being silent on it or being public about it is something that organizations would have to weigh. It depends on ultimately the line of business they're in and their strategy. But one would argue that being able to go to market with the message that we are GDPR compliant, and I've even seen some companies outline that they've gone further than the demands of GDPR, have gained some degree of substantial sort of marketing and competitive advantage. Because it does signal that they've taken privacy very seriously.
Yeah, from a marketing and a digital marketing perspective, what we've found is a lot of our clients are afraid, both as it relates to the EU right now and as it relates to these regulations coming on board potentially sometime in the US, that they're going to have to go back to the old days of banner ads and things that were ineffective, back to the Stone Age of marketing, and be shut out from all of this data. So it's a very real concern, both, as you said, from the security side, as well as being able to unlock that value of the data. Yeah, and again, in a similar way to Atlanta, people don't want you to market to them using their data until they do, until it's something that's relevant to them on a timely basis when they really need it. And finding that balance is very difficult at times, so I agree.
Well, no question, and I think that, but that to me is an opportunity. Firms that can figure out how to crack the code while retaining micro-targeting and retaining sort of a consumer-based user experience, service experience, or product experience, while at the same time acknowledging that there is going to be a trade-off. I think, part of what your, GDPR is calling for is proper notification processes. That now in your customer journey, you're entering a domain where you are agreeing to cede some trade-off of privacy and information in exchange for better value. And as you pointed out, I think all too often marketeers are shooting with shotguns, hoping that things fall from the sky. So micro-targeting, doesn't have to be sacrificed because privacy is now given, some degree of, regulatory consequence. I just think we need to be smarter at it, and I would argue that this is an opportunity environment for firms to really show that they care about privacy, while at the same time show that they care about their customers' wants, needs, and sort of very specific engagement models.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head on terms of the targeted marketing. It's so much easier to do now, even without the data, whether it's with artificial intelligence tools, whether it's other technology platforms that have come out, and what we know about groups as opposed to individuals, what their preferences are, and being able to serve up the right message to the right person at the right time. You really don't, if you're a sophisticated marketer, you don't need any PII or any specific information, even emails. There are ways to micro-target on a macro broad level, provided you do your work and you understand both the messaging, creative, strategy side up front and the technology delivery side on the back end. Well, let's conclude. I appreciate you taking the time. It was great to chat, and we will be talking some more about this and other related issues in VideoCast to come.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.